let's take a look at the morning's papers then. Helping me do that today is psychotherapist Jared Alden, and you work at the German Neuroscience Centre. Thank you very much for joining me on the programme today. Help me through the papers.
Glad to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about you. You're a psychotherapist. You've been in Dubai now for 5 years.
Yes.
Where were you before that?
I was working in London prior to that, so I was at the Priory Hospital in London for about 6 years.
Okay. Is that the Priory that people will know about, the famous Priory?
Yes, I'm afraid it is, yes.
And so did you train in London?
No, I didn't do any of my training in London. Most of my academic work was done in California.
Okay, you're a psychotherapist.
Yes.
So what does that entail? What is your job duties?
We're primarily the when you think of someone sitting in a room doing talk therapy, we're the ones that do most of that.
Right.
If you're going to a psychiatrist, he's going to assist you with medication, more because of course they're being a medical doctor. They tend not to have the time to do one-to-one therapy. Their appointments tend to be much shorter. We're the ones that are primarily doing most of the therapy work.
So what's then the difference between a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a psychotherapist?
Psychologists traditionally work in academia. They work in school systems, large institutions. They'll do testing, IQ testing. And they traditionally have more of an academic bent, but there's certainly many psychologists who do what we call clinical work. But traditionally, it's been psychotherapists doing the therapy.
I see. Okay, we'll talk more about that in a few moments' time after we look at some of the headlines from this morning's papers. And the violence in Iraq is part of a broader Sunni Arab revolt that could lead to a holy war in the country, and is not just a rampage by Islamist militants from an Al-Qaeda splinter group. Fugitive Vice President Tariq al-Hashemi told Reuters on Monday. This is written in Gulf News today. Militants from the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant have routed Baghdad's army and seized the north of the country in the past week, threatening to dismember Iraq and unleash all-out sectarian war. What happened in my country is desperate. People revolted. Simple as that. Arab Sunni communities over 11 years faced discrimination, injustice, corruption, Hashemi said, rejecting the suggestion that militants from ISIL, also known as ISIS, alone were responsible. He picked out from the papers this morning that Saudi pilgrims are being warned over the spread of MERS. This is a warning from the World Health Organization that says efforts to prevent the spread of MERS need to be stepped up ahead of the start of the pilgrimage season to Saudi Arabia. Now, I suppose it was just like all viruses. I suppose
yes.
You've got to just be more careful about trying to contain the spread.
A lot of people are getting quite worried about this, but actually just standard hygiene protocols will be very effective. Wash your hands as much as you possibly can. Never put your hands to your face, touch your eyes, rub your eyes, your ears, your mouth, and that is the best way.
Also linked to that, Khaleej Times is writing that Dubai has begun testing 1,000 camels to conduct a scientific study about the link between the dromedaries and the MERS coronavirus. The Central Vet Research Laboratory has launched the study based on the directives of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President and Prime Minister of the UAE and ruler of Dubai. His Highness wants to know what is happening, said the scientific director of the CVRL, Professor Uli Verneri. He wants to know what's happening regarding the disease's connection with camels, and he has given us the green light to carry out the study to find out more about the epidemiology of the disease than what we know now. He told Khaleej Times yesterday there are more than 250,000 camels in the UAE. The study will include about 1,000 camels of different ages and from different localities in Dubai. Talking to Jared Alden, who is a psychotherapist working at the German Neuroscience Centre, which is based in Healthcare City. Healthcare City is now it's thriving, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a very busy place these days.
Because has the German Neuroscience Centre been based there for 5 years as well?
We have been there since the beginning, so we remember when the halls were a little bit more empty than they are now.
Yeah. So going on to your work, and obviously you mentioned that you do the therapy aspect.
Yes.
The idea, which is popularized, I suppose, in many American shows,
Yes.
of some fraught guy or girl spilling out their heart to their therapist. But is it really like that on a day-to-day basis?
It is. It's similar. Yes. It is probably much more practical and maybe a little bit more boring than people might imagine. We tend to focus on not just talking, but kind of really helping someone through it. So it's not the kind of lying back on a sofa talking about your problems.
And how do people get referred to you?
Mostly by doctors, so it'll be their general practitioner, and after that it's friends.
Okay, and this is, you look at all aspects of people's lives.
Every aspect.
Do you have any sort of specialty area?
Well, I myself, I don't want to specialize, because then you get too focused in one area. And I think it's very important to be able to assist anyone who walks through the door.
Okay, we're looking at the papers this morning. Dubai's biggest business park is increasing rents by as much as 43% in a move that could hit hundreds of tenants. The National writes that TCOM, which operates Dubai Internet City, Dubai Media City and Dubai Knowledge Village, has raised rents and service charges across the three sites. As we operate in a dynamic industry, it is important for us to adapt to the changing needs and requirements of the market, TCOM Investments Management said in a statement. As part of a periodic review of the prevailing market requirements, and in order for us to continue enhancing our products and services, a pricing adjustment in service charges and rents has been concluded. The sprawling office parks, which are home to companies such as Thomson Reuters, Hewlett-Packard and Sony, are almost completely full. And the man dubbed the world's greatest daredevil is challenging UAE residents to come up with his most daring feat yet. As you may have heard on this show yesterday, no less, and also reported in 7 Days Today, fearless Bello Nok was in Dubai giving demonstrations of strength to tourists in front of the Burj Khalifa, and he laid down the gauntlet. The American is famous for some of the world's most death-defying acts, including the Guinness World Record for the highest ever wire walk. He's also unmistakable for his trademark foot-high flat-top hairstyle. So next month, as he was telling us on the show yesterday, he's going to be completing the ultimate. This is 15 back-to-back stunts in 15 minutes, which is going to be screened live on the ultimate.com website. It was fascinating talking to him yesterday, I tell you. Obviously, all the papers carrying on with their massive coverage of, as you would expect, the World Cup.
Yes.
We're into now the second round of group matches.
Yes.
In fact, Brazil struggled last night a little bit against Mexico to kick off the second stage. What is interesting is, and you were mentioning this to me off air, and I think a lot of people invest time and emotion into the World Cup. We can see that maybe half the world's population are watching it, no matter what time of night it is across the world. People are going to be watching the matches on the World Cup.
Absolutely.
Here, of course, it's as popular as anywhere else. But it can affect you, can't it? This month-long tournament can have a great effect on you.
Absolutely. You would be amazed how invested people get in their particular team. And it is very much an emotional issue, and people feel very comfortable expressing that. Go into any of the eating establishments around Dubai, and you will certainly see that.
Let's talk about if you're Spanish.
Yes.
Been used to winning everything over the last few years. Things didn't go well at all in their opening match. In fact, they somewhat collapsed in the second half, ended up on the wrong end of a 5-1 result against the Netherlands. Now, what would happen, and it's not beyond the realms of possibility because Chile, very good side, playing tonight.
Yes.
What would happen if Chile win? And that leads to Spain with 2 defeats and possibly facing difficulty. I'm not quite sure the logistics, but it could mean that they're already knocked out after this stage, depending on how the other results go. What do you think this would mean to someone who's used to see their team winning go out at such an early stage?
It is very tough, and of course they would be very upset. What makes it a challenge is some people who might be vulnerable in other areas of their life, to having trouble in their working life or family members. This can put a really quite a significant stress on an individual and a family.
And also, how does it then add up in terms of you with late night matches? And if you are watching the late night matches, and I'm sure some people are, you're going to feel tired the next day.
Absolutely.
It might affect productivity through tiredness, but is that then going to also impact on your mood if your particular team hasn't done that well that previous night?
Absolutely. I mean, for most of us, these are going to be very temporary changes, which is perfectly normal. There are folks that are more vulnerable, like I say, because of family stress or job stress. And so that's one thing to keep in mind is, if you are facing some difficulties, perhaps you should catch the morning summary on the news.
What is it about sport, and possibly football in particular, and the World Cup, that we find we invest so much of our emotions into?
Well, it's a safe way to express emotion. I think for most of us men, that was probably the very first time we saw our dads get very animated, was over football. And so that's, for a lot of us, a very strong memory. And so it's a very safe way to get very excited about something.
Also, it helps enhance bonds, doesn't it, as well? If you're going
Absolutely.
out with your friends to a restaurant, a cafe to watch a match,
Yeah.
you've got that combined, you're experiencing something together.
Absolutely. And there's really very few things in this world where you can get 3 billion people to agree on or disagree on. But that kind of focus in football is very unique.
Talking to Jared Alden, who is from the German Neuroscience Center, psychotherapist there. We've been talking about the emotional effects of watching the World Cup. As a Scotsman, it's not really an issue for me because I can just watch on without having to worry about my team. And I haven't had to worry about that since 1998, so never mind. Another thing is that as we go into the summer months,
Yes.
obviously the UAE, a little bit different to where I come from. Summer months was always something to look forward to, a little bit warmer. You had the summer holidays, obviously. Summer holidays coming up here. But heat here, does that cause people to change their outlook at all mentally?
I think the summer for us here tends to be a time where we put things off. People are away. A lot of times families travel back to their home countries. And so it tends to be a time where we work harder in some ways, but then also in terms of our healthcare, we tend to kind of push that aside.
Oh, right.
And so that sometimes can be problematic here.
Oh, right. I thought in terms of when you were talking about put things off, is because maybe people feel or are more accepting about things not getting done because, half your company is away.
Right.
That's,
right. Yes,
so we
that's true.
understand that you might not be able to get back to me as soon as we might have expected in winter.
Yes, true.
But that's saying that we generally tend to, in our behavior, sort of sit back a bit.
Absolutely so, because we make the assumption that a lot of people are away. Well, and actually they may not be, but we just kind of make the assumption, it's summer, so things are going to slow down a little bit. And so we tend to put off appointments. We tend to, basically put things aside.
And in terms of activities, does that also then go there? Does our brain kind of think it's hot, we just want to sit back, relax, and we'll put off the exercise. It's a bit too hot to go exercising today.
That's true. Even though, of course, most of us exercise inside anyway, we tend to put it aside, yes.
So you work at the German Neuroscience Center. It's based at Healthcare City. If anyone's wanting to maybe to have a chat with you, find out more about what you do, just generally get in touch, what's the best way to do that?
Absolutely. I mean, what most of us do these days is we look at websites to get a scope of how things are. So we're at gnc-dubai.com. And or look in Google under German Neuroscience Center, and you'll certainly find us there.
GNC or hyphen Dubai.
Hyphen Dubai, yes.
.com.
Sorry.
Jared Alden, psychotherapist at the German Neuroscience Centre. Thank you very much for coming in today. And start thinking about that emotional investment if you're watching the World Cup over the next 2.5 or so weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.